My name is Ren Dawson. I'm 31 years old, and I've worked for the same airline for almost 9 years. I started out in college, tossing bags onto conveyor belts at 4 a.m., fingers numb from winter, listening to jet engines roar before the sun even thought about rising. Then I moved up to customer service, smiling through delayed flights and missed connections, learning how fragile people get when their plans fall apart. Now I manage route scheduling for our East Coast operations. It's not glamorous. I'm not a pilot, not an influencer flashing first class champagne in a luxury vlog. I'm the person behind the screen making sure the right planes and the right crews are in the right place at the right time. But the job pays well enough. And the travel benefits? Those are killer. Free or heavily discounted flights, hotel deals, priority boarding, lounge passes. The kind of perks you don't think about until you see the total bill for a normal person. For the last 3 years, those perks didn't just belong to me. They extended to my boyfriend, Jason. Jason loved those perks. Sometimes, if I'm honest, I wondered if he loved them more than he loved me. We met through friends. The usual story. He was charming, funny, a little too smooth, but I told myself that was confidence, not arrogance. He worked in sales for a tech company. Good suits, good hair, good stories. There was also a shadow he never liked to talk about, his ex-girlfriend, Melissa. I only met Melissa once, by accident, at a bar after a work event. She gave me this long, searching look and said, "You must be Ren. Good luck keeping him interested. He hates being bored." At the time, I brushed it off as bitter ex energy. Now, it feels like the universe slipped me a spoiler warning, and I shrugged my way past it. Last month, Jason told me he needed a break. "Just a guy's weekend," he said, leaning against the kitchen counter, scrolling on his phone while I packed my lunch for the next day. "Miami. Tyler wants to celebrate his promotion. We'll just hit the beach, blow off steam, drink too much, pretend we're 22 again." I laughed, but there was an ache under my ribs. "Who's going?" I asked. He listed off names: Tyler, Mark, some others I'd heard in passing. All men, all the guys. "It's nothing crazy, Ren," he added, coming up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "I just need to breathe a little. Work's been insane. You get it." I do get it, I thought. I also get that you never invite me on these trips. Out loud, I just said, "You already requested the days off?" "Yeah, cleared it last week," he said. "Think you can work your magic on the flights? You know, airline goddess and all that?" He grinned, and I rolled my eyes, but of course I did it. I used my employee discount to book his flight. Not just that. I upgraded his seat and arranged for a complimentary bottle of champagne to be waiting when he boarded. A small surprise. A quiet way of saying, "I see you. I'm rooting for you." That's the thing about me. When I love someone, I fix their travel and their messes in the background and pretend it's effortless. The Thursday before his trip, I helped him pack. He tossed clothes in a pile. I folded them, made sure he had sunscreen, chargers, his passport card, the meds he always forgot. He was giddy, bouncing around the bedroom, talking about ocean views and rooftop bars. "You sure you're okay with this?" he asked once, zipping his suitcase. I forced my face into an easy smile. "Of course. Just don't come back with a bad tattoo or a new gambling addiction." He laughed, came over, and kissed me on the forehead. "You're the best, Ren. Seriously. You're like the safe one. The one I can count on." Safe. The word slid under my skin and stayed there. The next morning, I drove him to the airport. He kissed me goodbye at the drop-off curb, his duffel slung over his shoulder. "Love you," he said, already half-turned toward the sliding doors. "Love you," I answered, watching him disappear into the crowd of rolling suitcases and rushed goodbyes. I went straight to work. That day, we had a weather system crawling over the Midwest, wreaking havoc on our Chicago hub. Delays, reroutes, crew shifts, the usual chaos. I slipped into that familiar mode I know too well. Headset on, eyes flicking over multiple screens, making decisions that affect thousands of people on planes I would never see. Around 7 p.m., while I was recalculating an overnight route, my phone lit up next to my keyboard. Snapchat. Tyler had added a new post to his private story. I frowned. I'd forgotten I was still on Tyler's private list. He and I got along fine, but we weren't close. Every once in a while, he'd post drunk karaoke or a meme that made Jason wheeze with laughter in our living room. I grabbed my phone, unlocked it, and tapped the notification without thinking. I was expecting a typical boys' weekend shot, beers lifted in a toast, maybe a goofy airport selfie. The first video didn't match the mental picture in my head. It was Jason, on a boat, the kind of sleek white charter boat you only see in travel ads. He was leaning back on a cushioned seat, and there was a woman sitting on his lap. Not just sitting, sinking into him, her back pressed against his chest. His arms were wrapped around her waist, fingers interlaced over her stomach like they'd practiced the pose. The camera panned closer as Tyler laughed behind the phone. In the corner, in a stainless steel ice bucket, I saw the bottle of champagne I'd arranged as a surprise. Tyler's caption sat over the video in bright neon letters. Day 1 and Jason's already making friends. The woman threw her head back, laughing. Jason leaned forward and said something in her ear, something I couldn't hear over the wind and the music, but I recognized the way his lips brushed the shell of her ear. He used to do that to me, on my couch, in my kitchen, in line at the grocery store when he wanted to make me blush. My thumb hovered over the screen as the video looped. Once, twice, 3 times. Each loop, I noticed new details. Her hand resting casually on his thigh, like it belonged there. His sunglasses pushed up into his hair, the way he always did when he wanted a woman to see his eyes. The familiar tilt of his head when he listened. Something I thought he only did for me. My chest went cold. Another notification from Tyler's story popped up immediately. I watched clip after clip. Jason at a beach club, pressed up against the same woman on a crowded dance floor. A boomerang of them taking shots together, their shoulders touching. Group photos with 3 other guys and 2 more women I'd never seen before. This was not a guys-only weekend. This was not blowing off steam with the boys. This was a vacation Jason had carefully edited in his retelling, so I wouldn't ask too many questions. My first instinct was to call him, to hit the little phone icon and demand, "What is this? Who is she? Why did you lie?" My hand even moved toward the call button. Then I stopped. A strange, clinical calm slid over me, the kind I usually only feel when a storm hits 3 of our major hubs at once and someone needs to decide what gets grounded. I set the phone face down on the desk. My heart was pounding, but my eyes moved back to the roots on my monitor. I could hear Melissa's voice from that night at the bar, her lacquered nails wrapped around a glass. "Good luck keeping him interested. He hates being bored." Back then, I'd laughed it off and told myself I'd prove her wrong. Now, watching him spin a story for me while he played a whole different role in Miami, I realized something quietly devastating. This wasn't about me being enough. This was about him never being satisfied. The Chicago disruption needed decisions. Planes needed rerouting. People needed to get home. So I worked. I adjusted departure times, reassigned crews, and moved through the chaos with this sharp, detached focus I didn't know I had. On autopilot, I replied to Jason's text. Just one. "Jason. Landed. Already on the boat. Miss you." Me. "Glad you made it. Have fun. Be safe." He had no idea I'd already seen everything. By the time my shift ended at 11 p.m., the office was quiet, humming only with fluorescent lights and the distant roar of a late departure. I walked to my car alone. No music, no podcast. Just the sound of my breathing and the echo of that boat video burned into my mind. On the drive home, the city lights blurred past the windshield. My stomach hurt, but my mind felt sharp, certain. 3 years together, hundreds of flights booked, upgrades arranged, hotels chosen with him in mind. And for what? By the time I pulled into my driveway, one thing was clear. Whatever we were was over. The only question left was how I wanted it to end. A screaming match over the phone felt cheap. A dramatic confrontation at arrivals? That wasn't me. A breakup text after 3 years? Pathetic. No. If Jason wanted to treat my life like a layover, then I would treat this breakup like what I knew best. A reroute, a policy change, a quiet cancellation he wouldn't see coming until he was already at the gate. I walked into my house, though his things still lived in every room, and went straight upstairs. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and logged into the airline employee portal. The familiar blue and white interface appeared, along with my profile and benefits. There it was, companion traveler, Jason Cole, linked to his upcoming return flight from Miami. I hovered my cursor over his name, my heart doing double time in my chest. Safe, he'd called me, the one he could count on. I stared at the screen and thought, maybe I'm finally done being his safe option. Then, very calmly, I clicked. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay in the dark, eyes open, watching headlights drift across the ceiling like ghost planes. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the boat again. Her in his lap, his arms around her waist, Tyler's laughing caption. I wasn't crying. That bothered me more than I expected. It felt like my body had skipped the breakdown stage and gone straight to logistics. Fix it, move it, reassign it. That's what I do. Around 2 a.m., I gave up on pretending to sleep. I swung my legs out of bed, padded to my desk, and opened my laptop again. The employee portal was still logged in from earlier. Jason's name still sat on my screen, tethered to my benefits like some invisible umbilical cord. I pulled my knees up into the chair, wrapped my arms around them, and watched the cursor blink next to companion traveler Jason Cole. There's a rule at our airline. Companion perks are meant for spouses, long-term partners, and immediate family. There's also a clause about ongoing qualifying relationship, a phrase I'd always rolled my eyes at before. HR sometimes audits the list, sends out emails asking you to confirm that your +1 is still your +1. I used to complain about that. Now it felt like a small door someone had left conveniently ajar. I clicked into the benefits section and opened the form labeled Update Household Relationship Status. A box popped up, asking if I wanted to remove a dependent from my profile. I rested my fingers on the keys and let the truth finally form into a complete sentence in my mind. We are not a relationship anymore, you just don't know it yet. I typed. I removed Jason's name from the list. A prompt appeared. Are you sure you want to remove this traveler? Any future bookings under companion benefits may be subject to fare adjustment. Yes, I clicked confirm. For a second, nothing happened. Then the page refreshed and his name vanished. His companion ID, the one he'd used for dozens of discounted flights, dissolved into white space. I sat back, heart tight, hands trembling. I didn't cancel your flight, I whispered into the empty room, as if he could hear me from Miami. I just took back what was mine. His return reservation was still in the system. His seat still existed, but now the computer would treat him like any other last-minute traveler, full fare, no discount. The system would flag his ticket for payment verification at check-in because the benefit that made it cheap no longer applied. I wasn't breaking rules. I wasn't hacking anything. I was simply updating my relationship status to the truth. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight stabbing through the blinds and the hollow ache of too little sleep. My phone showed a few texts from Jason. Jason, 11:58 p.m. Tyler says thanks for the champagne hookup. You're the best, baby. Jason, 12:02 a.m. You still awake? Jason, 12:15 a.m. Guess you crashed. Night, safe one. Safe one. I tossed the phone onto the bed and went to make coffee. As the machine sputtered to life, I leaned against the counter and stared around my kitchen. His favorite mug in the rack, his sneakers by the back door, his jacket on the chair. 3 years of Jason had seeped into the house like a smell I'd stopped noticing. By the time the coffee finished, I'd already pulled out a stack of cardboard boxes from the hall closet. I started in the bedroom. His side of the closet was easy at first. Suits, shirts, jeans. I folded everything neatly, stacking them in the box. Every so often, I'd pause with a shirt in my hands, remembering a specific night, a party, a joke. That morning when he said I looked like a cute flight attendant even out of uniform, and I'd pretended not to be flattered. Below the hanging clothes, there was a shoebox on the floor I didn't recognize. I opened it, half expecting something terrible. Inside were movie ticket stubs, a dried concert wristband, the program from my promotion ceremony, folded in quarters. A small, grainy photo booth strip of us, with our faces squeezed together, laughing. For a second, my throat closed. He did keep things. He did care, at least in moments. That realization hurt almost more than if the box had been empty. Caring in pieces doesn't excuse what you did in whole, I said quietly, to nobody. I taped the shoebox shut and put it gently on top of his clothes. In the bathroom, I gathered his toiletries. The cologne I used to like. The razor he always left on the counter no matter how many times I nudged it back into the cabinet. As I packed, my mind drifted to Melissa again. A year into our relationship, I'd stumbled across an old thread of messages between them on Jason's laptop. Nothing scandalous, just a tense exchange about him promising he'd changed. When I confronted him, he'd looked genuinely upset. That was before you, he swore. I was selfish back then. I treated her badly. I get that. But you're different, Ren. You're my reset. I'd believed him. I didn't realize then that I was just the next smooth landing after a turbulent flight he never bothered to repair. Box by box, room by room, I dismantled our life. In the living room, I took down photos. The one from our weekend in Denver, the blurry shot of us holding greasy paper cups of fries at a fair, the framed print of a beach in Costa Rica he'd picked because it looks like where we'll go someday. Some of them I left in his box. Some I wrapped and set aside in a small pile of my own. Not because I wanted to keep him, but because they were proof that once I had chosen to love someone fully. That part of me deserved to be remembered. By the time afternoon light slanted through the windows, the house looked wrong, bare, too big. I changed the sheets on the bed, replacing the dark gray set he liked with a clean white one I'd bought months ago and never used because he said it felt like a hotel. Good, I thought, smoothing the corners. Maybe I want my life to feel like a fresh check-in. My phone buzzed. Jason, 11:07 a.m. Beach time. Sun is brutal. You'd hate it. A minute later, a photo came through of his feet in the sand, beer bottle in hand. No women in the frame. The careful version of the story, curated just for me. Jason, 11:09 a.m. Miss you. Weather's perfect. I stared at the screen, then typed back. Me. Glad you're having fun. Don't forget sunscreen. Neutral. Casual. Nothing to reveal that his entire life here was being organized into cardboard. Saturday felt like a strange bubble of productivity. I vacuumed, scrubbed, rearranged furniture. I took his game console out of the living room and tucked it into one of the boxes. I deleted our shared playlists. The one titled Road Trips stung the most. At some point, I printed a single-page document and sat down at the kitchen table to write. Jason, I began. I didn't list every screenshot. I didn't transcribe every video. Instead, I wrote about the feeling of watching his hands on someone else when I'd just booked his champagne as a surprise. I told him I'd seen enough to know it wasn't a misunderstanding. I told him I hadn't canceled his flight. I'd simply told the truth to the company that gave me the perks he'd been abusing. I told him I'd packed his things and dropped them off somewhere safe. I told him not to come to my house, that I wouldn't be opening the door. At the very end, I wrote one last line. You once told me I was the safe one, the one you could count on. You were right. I am safe. You just mistook that for someone who would always be waiting. I signed my name, folded the letter, and slipped it into an envelope along with his house key, the only copy he'd ever had. Sunday afternoon, I checked his return flight status out of habit. On time. I grabbed my keys and started loading his boxes into the car. 4 in the trunk, 1 in the back seat. His entire presence in my home reduced to cardboard and tape. As I closed the trunk, I hesitated. We'd driven this car to so many places together. Late-night fast food runs, weekend trips, long drives where we planned imaginary futures. Now I was using it to deliver him back to his real one. Jason had given a spare key to his sister Lily, just in case. I knew her address by heart. We'd spent holidays there, birthdays, a few casual Sunday dinners, where she'd leaned over to whisper, "You're good for him, you know. You calm him down." I wondered what she'd say now. The drive to Lily's felt longer than usual. My hands were tight on the steering wheel. A part of me wanted to turn around, put the boxes back. Pretend I'd never seen that boat video. Pretend I didn't know. But if there's one thing working in aviation has taught me, it's this. Once you see a crack in the fuselage, you don't unsee it. You ground the plane. You don't gamble with lives to keep the schedule pretty. Lily opened the front door before I even knocked twice. "Ren," she frowned, eyes flicking to my car, then back to my face. "Hey, what's going on? You look off." I swallowed, suddenly aware of how empty my hands were without my usual mask of polite cheer. "I need to leave some things here," I said. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. "Jason's things." Her brows drew together. "What? Why? Did you two—" I took my phone out, opened Tyler's private story, and held the screen out to her. "Press play," I said. She did. I watched Lily's face as the boat came into view, as she registered her brother's arms around a stranger, as she read the caption. Her lips parted, then pressed into a thin line. By the second loop, her jaw clenched. "Is this from this weekend?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Friday," I said. The trip he told me was just the guys. She stared at the screen a moment longer, then handed it back to me with a slow exhale. "I'm so sorry," she said quietly. "I had no idea he was—" "You're not responsible for him," I cut in gently. "I just can't have his things in my house anymore. I'm changing the locks tomorrow. I was hoping you could hold on to his stuff until he figures out where to go next." She nodded immediately. "Of course. Yeah, of course. Let me help you." We unloaded the boxes together into her garage. She kept glancing at me like she wanted to say more, but didn't know how. When we were done, I reached into my pocket and held out the envelope. "There's a letter in here," I said, "and his key." Could you give it to him when he gets back? Lily took it with both hands, like it was fragile. I will, she promised. Then, after a second's hesitation, she stepped forward and pulled me into a hug. Hearts aren't supposed to crack from kindness, but mine did. For what it's worth, she whispered near my ear, you deserve so much better than this. I let myself lean into her for a breath, then pulled back and nodded. Take care of yourself, Ren, she added. You too, I answered, and climbed back into my now much emptier car. As I drove away, my phone buzzed in the cup holder with a new message from Jason. Jason, 4:12 p.m. At the airport, heading home to you. He had no idea that the only thing waiting for him now was a full fare ticket and a locked door. Jason's return flight was scheduled for 6:45 p.m. Miami time. By then, I had already settled into my quiet house, if you could even call it settled. The space felt foreign, like a rental I'd moved into that morning, or a hotel room right after housekeeping changes the sheets. Too clean, too quiet, too mine. I made tea, though I barely drank it, and sat by the window while the sun dipped behind the houses across the street. I wasn't waiting for anything in particular, not hoping, not dreading. Just bracing. At 6:52 p.m., my phone buzzed. Lily. He just called me. He's saying there's an issue with his ticket. I stared at the message, a strange mix of adrenaline and numbness sweeping through me. Another buzz seconds later. Lily. He's panicking. The agent said the companion benefit isn't attached anymore. Did you do something? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed back. Me. I told the truth to the airline. We're no longer in a qualifying relationship. 3 dots appeared and disappeared. Lily typing, deleting, typing again. Then, Lily. I won't lie for him. Just letting you know he's scrambling for money. I set my phone down. Not upside down this time, just away. Another buzz pulled my attention back minutes later. Jason, 7:04 p.m. Hey babe, something's wrong with my ticket. They're saying I have to pay the full fare? Call me. A second message came immediately. Jason, Ren, pick up. What's going on? I didn't answer. Instead, I got up, walked to the kitchen, and cut myself a slice of leftover quiche. I wasn't even hungry, but it felt grounding to do something ordinary while his entire trip unraveled in real time. My phone buzzed again. Jason, 7:11 p.m. The agent is saying you removed me from your benefits? That can't be right. Fix it. I need to get home. Fix it. I laughed. A sharp, humorless sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. For 3 years, everything had been my job to fix. Travel mishaps, bills he forgot, reservations he needed, weekend plans when he was too stressed to think, his moods when he carried work home like a storm cloud. Fix it, fix it, fix it. Even when Melissa had warned me, quietly, almost with sympathy, that Jason treated people like life rafts during emotional turbulence, I convinced myself that love meant staying afloat for both of us. But now he had finally hit a sea, I refused to swim for him. At 7:20 p.m., the messages changed tone. Jason, why aren't you answering? Seriously, I'm stuck here. This isn't funny. 2 minutes later. Jason, I don't have $600 to drop on a last-minute flight, Ren. You know that? What the hell? The guilt tried to claw its way up my spine. I shoved it back down where it belonged. Another text, longer this time. Jason, 7:28 p.m. It's on mission, paid 8 p.m. Are you punishing me for the trip? Seriously? Nothing even happened. I told you, it was just the guys. Tyler must have posted something stupid. Whatever you think you saw, it's not what it looks like. I could almost see him, standing at the check-in counter, sweating, running a hand through his hair, switching between frustration and that fake charm he used whenever he needed something. Then another message came through, from Lily this time. Lily, he asked me to send him money. I told him no. He's furious. Me, thank you. Lily, he looks scared, Ren, but that's on him, not you. I swallowed hard. He should have been scared earlier, I thought, when he still had something to lose. At 8:02 p.m., a new message came, this time a photo screenshot Lily forwarded to me, a picture from Tyler's private story. I recognized the stiff plastic chairs immediately. Jason curled up in an airport waiting area, backpack shoved under his head as a makeshift pillow. Hoodie pulled up, eyes closed. Caption, stranded in MIA, guess the party's over. I stared at it longer than I expected. Not with satisfaction, not with gloating. More like diagnosis. This is what natural consequences look like, I thought. Not revenge, not cruelty. Just gravity. A man who lied, cheated, and relied on someone else to build his comfort. finally landing on a runway he paved himself. At 8:40 p.m., another text from Jason. Jason, fine, I'll figure it out. Thanks for nothing. The silence that followed was the first peace I'd felt in days. Around 11:15 p.m., my security camera app chimed. Front door camera, motion detected. My stomach tightened. I opened the app. Jason stood at my doorstep, lit by the yellow porch light. His hair was messy. His backpack hung off one shoulder. He looked exhausted, angry, embarrassed, unsure. He rang the doorbell, once, twice, 5 times. I watched from upstairs in the dark, heart pounding, but hands steady. He tried his old key. It didn't fit. He jiggled it hard enough to make the lock rattle. He stepped back, pressing both palms to his face. Then he sat on the porch step, elbows on his knees, pacing between pulling at his hair and checking his phone. A message came through. Jason, 11:19 p.m. You changed the damn locks? Really? After everything we've been through? Everything we had been through. Funny how betrayal becomes we only when the consequences arrive. He stayed on the porch for almost an hour. Finally, near midnight, Lily's car pulled up. She got out, walked to him, rested a hand on his shoulder, and said something that made him look away. He let her guide him to the car. As they drove off, another notification popped up. Jason, I know you're watching this. I don't deserve this. Call me. I didn't. Instead, I closed the app, turned off my phone, climbed into my freshly made bed, and let the silence fold around me like a blanket. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. Morning came softly. No pounding heart, no buzzing phone, no half-formed excuses waiting to be swallowed. Just sunlight warming the sheets and a quiet that felt earned. I stayed in bed longer than usual, letting my mind catch up to reality. Jason was no longer part of this house, or my daily routine, or my future plans. In the dim glow of early morning, it felt almost surreal, like the aftermath of a storm you'd prepared for, but never truly expected to hit. At 9:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not with Jason's name, with Lily's. Lily. He read your letter. He didn't say much, just sat there for a long time. I closed my eyes. Good, let him sit with it. My letter wasn't cruel. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a laundry list of his sins. It was simply the truth laid out cleanly, something he'd avoided giving me for a long time. A few minutes later, another buzz. Jason, 9:47 a.m. You knew and you let me sit at that airport all night? How could you do that to me after 3 years? No greeting, no apology, straight to blame. Then another. Jason. Answer your phone, Ren. I'm not playing games. And another. Jason. I slept on the floor because of you. Do you understand that? On the floor. I almost laughed at that one. He hadn't messaged this urgently when he was lying on a boat with a stranger in his lap. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked downstairs, brewed a fresh cup of coffee, and opened the curtains. Light flooded into a house that finally felt like it had room to breathe. 10 minutes passed. More notifications. Jason. This is an overreaction. You're blowing things out of proportion. It was just harmless fun. She meant nothing. You know I love you. Stop ignoring me. We can fix this. There it was, the full cycle. Anger, justification, minimization, flattery, desperation. A pattern Melissa had warned me about. A pattern I had ignored because I believed I wasn't her. But the truth was simple. He didn't treat me differently than he treated her. He just hid it better. Around noon, I checked my email. My supervisor had sent a commendation. Ren, your performance during the Chicago disruption was exceptional. We're recommending you for operational excellence recognition next quarter. I stared at the words, stunned. The same night, my relationship fell apart. I apparently did some of the best work of my career. It made sense, in a way. Crisis was my element. Fixing things was my reflex. But the thought that followed clung to me. What could my life look like if I only fixed what actually belonged to me? My phone buzzed again. Jason, 12:16 p.m. Please, I can explain. I swear it's not what it looked like. Can we talk in person? I'm sorry, please. Then, Jason, 12:27 p.m. Ren, don't do this. I love you. Only you. For a brief moment, less than a breath, I felt that old pull. The part of me that remembered our good days, the nights we stayed up talking, how he held my hand during my grandmother's funeral, the trips we took, the routines we built. But then I remembered the boat, the way he lied without hesitation, how easily he assumed I would cover for him again. Love without respect is a hallway with no doors, and I'd been standing in that hallway too long. I didn't reply. At 5 p.m., my phone buzzed with a final message, not from him, from Lily. Lily. He's moving into a short-term rental. He knows you're not responding. He said, "Tell Ren I never meant to hurt her. I don't know if that matters, but I told you I'd pass it on." I read it once, then again, then set the phone down. It didn't matter. Intentions don't erase choices, and choices write the ending. That night, I ordered takeout from my favorite Thai place. Not our favorite place, mine. I watched a documentary he used to complain was too boring. I lit a candle he said gave him headaches. I opened all the windows even though he always claimed it made the house drafty. The house felt like it knew it belonged to me again. And maybe the real surprise was this. I wasn't devastated, I wasn't broken, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was free. 2 weeks passed, with no more messages from Jason. Mutual friends whispered updates through group chats, carefully neutral, as though discussing a neighbor who'd moved away. Jason told people I overreacted. He downplayed the woman on the boat. He made excuses, softened the edges, tried to paint himself as unlucky rather than unfaithful. Tyler, ironically, felt guilty. He sent me a long apology I didn't respond to. He started posting fewer private stories. Melissa also reached out once through Instagram. Just a short message. "I heard, I'm sorry, you didn't deserve that." I didn't respond to her either, not because I was angry, but because she already knew the truth I'd learned the hard way. One night, after thinking about it for too long, I opened my airline employee app. I hovered over Book a Flight. I didn't choose Miami. I didn't choose anywhere Jason and I had planned to go together. I chose Seattle, a trip I'd always wanted to take alone. Rainy streets, bookstores, quiet coffee shops, the kind of vacation you take when you're learning how to hear yourself again. One seat, no companion fare, no champagne surprise. Just me. When the confirmation email chimed, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Light, unburdened, almost excited. As the day of my trip approached, I packed a small suitcase. The clothes I liked, the camera I hadn't used in ages, a notebook with crisp pages waiting to be filled. On the morning of the flight, I stood at the gate watching passengers line up, couples bickering softly, families trying to wrangle toddlers, solo travelers with earbuds in, worlds of their own. My boarding group was called. I stepped forward. As I scanned my ticket and walked down the jet bridge, a final thought came to me. Gentle, steady, true. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is reclaiming the life someone thought they had the right to waste. No screaming, no theatrics, no second chances for someone who misused the first. Just silence. Sometimes the answer isn't what you say, it's what you no longer stay for.